Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of a cracked sidewalk, the city's heartbeat pulsing through the soles of my worn-out sneakers, as a street vendor's shout cuts through the morning haze. My name's Cindy, 28 years young, and this concrete jungle is my battleground. I've been hitched to Mark for 3 years now, a solid guy, 32, with hands rough from turning wrenches as a mechanic. We've carved out a little life in a shoebox apartment, where the walls are thin and the dreams are big. Our days are a grind, a constant juggle of bills and late-night talks about escaping to something better. We're just like anyone else, scraping by, hoping for a break. I pull double duty to keep us afloat. By day, I'm the voice behind the desk at a local clinic, smiling through the chaos of appointments and complaints. But when the sun dips low, I trade my headset for a cleaning cart at the Grand Vista Hotel downtown. It's not glamorous, mid-range at best, with faded carpets and a lobby that smells faintly of cheap air freshener, but the pay's decent for the hours. I usually tackle a handful of rooms per shift, scrubbing away the mess of strangers, making beds, and wiping down surfaces until my arms ache. It's mindless work, the kind that lets your thoughts wander, though I often break the monotony by swapping small talk with the staff. There's always a story or two floating around the break room, and it keeps me sane. Mark isn't thrilled about my late shifts at the hotel. I can see it in the way his brow furrows when I grab my uniform, but he bites his tongue. He trusts me, and he knows we need every penny. We've got plans, maybe a house someday, or at least a vacation that doesn't involve a staycation on our lumpy couch. So, I push through, cart rolling down those long hallways, the hum of the vacuum drowning out the city's roar outside. Now, there are these 2 guys I've noticed around the Grand Vista. Not staff, not regulars I chat with, just faces that stand out amid the blur of guests. First, there's Ethan, mid-30s, with a jawline that could cut glass, and a smile that could charm the paint off the walls. He's got this confidence, like he owns every room he walks into, and I've seen him in the lobby, sipping coffee like he's got nowhere else to be. Then there's Ryan, about the same age, but quieter, almost too still. His eyes are intense, like they're always searching for something, and he keeps to himself, often tucked into a corner of the bar, with a drink he barely touches. I've never spoken to either of them, just caught glimpses as I roll my cart past or restock towels. They're just part of the scenery, background noise in the humdrum of my routine. My life's not exciting, I'll admit. It's a loop of alarm clocks and early mornings, but Thursday started like any other. My alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., dragging me out of a dream I couldn't quite remember. I rolled over, the mattress creaking under me, and saw Mark already stirring. He's always up before the sun, ready to tackle another day at the garage. I leaned over, pressing a quick kiss to his stubbled cheek, his skin warm against mine. "See you tonight," I mumbled, my voice still thick with sleep. He grunted something sweet in return, already halfway out the door as I dragged myself upright. I stumbled to the closet, grabbing my cleaning uniform, a plain navy polo and black pants that no amount of washing can rid of that faint bleach smell. It's not a look that turns heads, but it's practical. And that's all I need for a short shift at the Grand Vista Hotel. I threw it on, splashed cold water on my face to shake off the grogginess, and headed out into the gray dawn. The drive to the hotel is a ritual in itself. My old car, a beat-up sedan with a temperamental heater, hums along the empty streets, the engines drone a familiar companion. The city looks different this early, quiet, almost somber, under a sky that can't decide if it wants to rain or just stay miserable. Streetlights flicker as I pass, casting long shadows over cracked pavement and shuttered storefronts. I crank the window down a sliver, letting the cool air slap me awake, and turn on the radio just low enough to hear the murmur of a morning talk show. It's the kind of routine that grounds me, even on days when I'd rather stay in bed. I pulled into the hotel parking lot just before 6:30, the Grand Vista's neon sign buzzing faintly above the entrance. It's not a fancy place, but it's got a certain worn-in charm if you squint hard enough. I grabbed my bag, locked the car, and headed inside, the lobby's stale air hitting me as I pushed through the glass doors. My supervisor, Linda, was already at the front desk, her sharp eyes scanning a clipboard like it held the secrets to the universe. She's in her 50s, all business, with a voice that could cut through steel and a habit of calling everyone Han, even when she's chewing you out. "Morning, Cindy," she said, barely looking up. "Got 3 rooms for you today. 3rd floor, 365, 367, and 369. Shouldn't take long." I nodded, taking the assignment sheet she slid across the counter, and gave her a quick, "Thanks," before heading to the supply closet. My cleaning cart was waiting for me, loaded up with the usual arsenal: disinfectant sprays, stacks of fresh linens, a bundle of rags, and those tiny shampoo bottles that always seem to vanish into guests' suitcases. I pushed it toward the elevator, the wheels squeaking on the tiled floor, and punched the button for the 3rd floor. The elevator dinged, the door slid open with a groan, and I rolled my cart inside, the fluorescent light flickering above me. The ride-up was short, just enough time to glance at my assignment sheet again. 365, 367, and 369. Routine stuff. I'd knocked out the first 2 rooms in no time, wiping down counters, swapping out towels, and making beds with the kind of precision that comes from doing this 100 times over. Room 369 was last on the list, and I figured it'd be just as quick. The hallway was quiet, the kind of stillness that makes every little sound, like the creak of my cart's wheels, feel louder than it should. I stopped outside the door, gave my usual courtesy knock, and called out, "Housekeeping." No answer. I waited a beat, then slid my keycard into the lock, the little green light flashing as the door clicked open. I pushed the door wider and stepped inside, expecting the usual mess of crumpled sheets and scattered belongings. But I froze mid-step, my breath catching in my throat. There, sitting on the edge of an unmade bed, were 2 men I'd seen before, Ethan and Ryan. My mind raced back to those fleeting glimpses in the lobby and bar, their faces etched into the background of my shifts. Now, here they were, in the flesh, casually chatting like they hadn't a care in the world. Ethan, with that easy, disarming grin I'd noticed from afar, was holding a glass of amber liquid, whiskey, I guessed, swirling it lazily in his hand. Ryan, more reserved, looked up at me with a curious gaze, his intense eyes locking onto mine for a moment longer than felt comfortable. The room itself told a story of a long night. Half-empty beer bottles cluttered the nightstand. A suitcase lay open on the floor with clothes spilling out, and a faint whiff of cologne hung in the air, mixing with something earthier I couldn't quite place. My cheeks burned as I realized I'd walked in on something I wasn't supposed to. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I stammered, my voice tripping over itself. "I thought the room was empty. I'll come back later." I started to back out, tugging my cart with me, the wheels catching on the doorframe in my haste. But before I could escape, Ethan stood up, his movements smooth and unhurried. He crossed the small space in a few strides and lightly tapped my shoulder, his touch warm even through the fabric of my uniform. "It's okay, you can clean." "We understand," he said, his voice low and smooth, almost playful, like we were sharing some little secret. I felt a strange mix of embarrassment and curiosity bubbling up inside me, my pulse ticking a little faster than it should have. Ryan nodded from his spot on the bed, gesturing for me to come in with a small wave of his hand. "Yeah, don't worry about us," he added, his tone quieter but just as steady. I hesitated, my hand still gripping the cart's handle, torn between bolting and staying. "It's just a quick job," I told myself. I didn't want to seem unprofessional, and Linda would have my head if I skipped a room without a good reason. So, I swallowed my nerves, forced a tight smile, and rolled the cart back inside, the door clicking shut behind me with a finality that made my stomach twist. I started my routine, trying to focus on the tasks at hand, stripping the tangled sheets from the bed, folding them into a neat pile, and grabbing fresh linens from my cart. Every move felt amplified under their gaze, though. Ethan had settled back onto the bed, his glass now resting on the nightstand, while Ryan leaned against the headboard, arms crossed, watching me with that same unreadable look. They made small talk as I worked, their voices filling the room with a casual rhythm. "Just passing through town on a business trip," Ethan said, his tone light as I wiped down the dusty dresser, Meetings all day, but the nights are ours." Ryan chimed in with a quiet agreement. As I stood there in room 369, the weight of Ethan and Ryan's presence seemed to press against me, making every breath feel a little heavier. I just finished wiping down the dresser, my hands still clutching the rag, when Ethan slid off the bed and picked up his glass again. He tilted it toward me, that charming grin of his flickering in the dim light. "Care for a sip?" he asked, his voice smooth as the amber liquid swirling inside. I hesitated, my mind racing with 100 reasons to say no, but something in his tone, in the way he looked at me, made me nod before I could stop myself. I took the glass, our fingers brushing for just a second, and brought it to my lips. The whiskey hit sharp and fierce, burning a trail down my throat and settling warm in my chest, like a fire kindling something I hadn't felt in a long time. I coughed a little, handing it back, and Ethan chuckled softly, the sound low and intimate. Ryan shifted closer on the bed, his quiet intensity pulling at me as much as Ethan's easy confidence. Their voices softened now, their laughter drawing nearer as the tension in the room seemed to melt into something else, something warmer. I found myself easing onto the edge of a chair near the bed, my cleaning supplies forgotten for the moment, the cart pushed to the side like it belonged to someone else's life. We talked about nothing that mattered, the city's endless sprawl, the places they'd seen on their travels, the monotony of my job at the hotel. It was mundane, but every word felt charged, like static building before a storm. Ethan's laugh vibrated through the air as he recounted a story about getting lost in some coastal town, and Ryan's rare smile felt like a secret shared just with me. I didn't notice at first when Ethan leaned in, his hand resting casually on my waist as he pulled out his phone to show me a photo. A beach at sunset, all golden sand and crashing waves. His touch was light, almost accidental, but it sent a jolt through me, a spark I hadn't felt in years. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. I just stared at the screen, barely registering the image, my heart thudding so loud I was sure they could hear it. The moment stretched, and I felt caught, suspended between what I knew I should do and this unfamiliar thrill racing through my veins. Ryan, always the quieter one, moved closer on my other side, his presence a steady heat. Then, without a word, he leaned in, his breath warm against my skin as his lips brushed the side of my neck just below my ear, in a gesture so gentle yet so deliberate, it stole the air from my lungs. A shiver raced down my spine, sharp and electric, and my mind screamed at me to stop, to stand up, to grab my cart and get out of there. But my body didn't move. It was like I was rooted to that chair, trapped by the weight of their nearness. The room felt smaller now, the air thicker, pressing in on all sides as their touches grew bolder. Ethan's fingers traced a slow path along my arm, a feather-light caress that made my skin prickle with awareness. Ryan's hand found my knee, resting there with a quiet confidence, his thumb brushing against the fabric of my uniform in a way that felt far too personal. Every nerve in me was alight, buzzing with a mix of fear and something I didn't want to name, something that pulled me under like a riptide. For a fleeting second, Mark's face flashed in my mind. His steady eyes, the way he'd kissed me goodbye that morning with a tired smile. A pang of guilt stabbed through me, cold and sharp, cutting through the haze. But it was gone just as fast, drowned out by the rush of adrenaline pumping through me, by the intoxicating pull of this moment I knew I shouldn't want. My breath came quicker, shallow, as I wrestled with myself, torn between the life I'd built and this dangerous edge I was teetering on. Ethan's voice murmured something I didn't catch, low and close, while Ryan's touch lingered, each moment drawing me deeper into a current I couldn't fight. My heart was a drum in my chest, each beat echoing louder as I felt myself slipping, the last threads of restraint fraying under the heat of their closeness. The whiskey's warmth still lingered in my veins, a slow burn that blurred the edges of right and wrong, and I knew I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But in that haze of temptation, with the room tilting around me like a ship caught in a storm, I gave in completely, surrendering to the pull I'd been resisting since the moment I'd taken that first sip. I turned my head, my eyes finding Ethan's, and in that split second, something unspoken passed between us, a question answered without words. His gaze was dark, magnetic, pulling me in as if I had no choice but to fall. He leaned closer, his hand sliding from my arm to the small of my back, a steady pressure that felt both like an anchor and a push over the edge. Then his lips met mine, hungry and unapologetic, a collision that sent a shockwave through me. It wasn't gentle, it was raw, a desperate kind of need that mirrored the chaos swirling in my mind. My breath hitched, my hands instinctively reaching for him, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt, as if I could hold on to something solid in this spiraling moment. Ryan was there too, his presence a quiet storm on my other side. I felt his hands, warm and deliberate, guiding me back, easing me down onto the bed as the world seemed to spin faster. The mattress dipped under our weight, the sheets still rumpled from the night before, and I was caught between them, their heat enveloping me like a tide I couldn't swim against. My mind was a mess of fragmented thoughts, guilt slicing through me like a blade one second, only to be swept away by the thrill of this forbidden dance the next. Every touch, every brush of skin against skin, was electric. Igniting parts of me I'd forgotten could feel this alive. It was as if I'd been sleepwalking through my life, and now, in this reckless, dangerous moment, I was wide awake. My pulse raced as Ryan's fingers traced a path along my collarbone. A slow, deliberate exploration that made my breath catch in my throat. Ethan's lips moved from mine, trailing along my jaw, each kiss a spark that fanned the flames higher. I was drowning in sensation, in the way their hands and whispers wove around me, pulling me deeper into a place where consequences didn't exist. The room itself seemed to fade, the clutter of bottles and scattered clothes blurring into the background, leaving only the three of us in this charged, intimate space. It was a surrender, a complete letting go, as I allowed myself to be carried away by the current of their desire and my own. But beneath the rush, beneath the wildfire spreading through me, there was a shadow, a cold undercurrent of shame that I couldn't fully ignore. Mark's face flickered in my mind again, unbidden, his trusting smile from that morning cutting through the fog like a shard of glass. I pushed it away, buried it under the weight of this moment, but it lingered, a quiet ache in my chest. What was I doing? How had I let myself fall this far, this fast? Yet even as those questions clawed at me, I couldn't stop. The thrill was too strong, the need too overwhelming, like a drug I hadn't known I craved until it was coursing through me. I was torn in two, split between the woman I'd been when I walked into this room and the one I was becoming with every passing second. Ethan's voice broke through my thoughts, low and rough against my ear, murmuring words that sent another shiver down my spine. I didn't catch them all, didn't need to. The tone alone was enough to keep me tethered to this reckless path. Ryan's touch grew bolder, his hands mapping out territory I hadn't shared with anyone but Mark in years, and I felt myself yielding further, letting the boundaries I'd built crumble like sand under a wave. It was a kind of madness, a fever dream. As the haze of what just happened in room 369 begins to lift, I'm left standing there, trembling in the aftermath. My heart's still pounding, a wild rhythm I can't slow down, and my skin feels like it's buzzing with the echoes of their touch. I take a shaky breath, trying to pull myself together, smoothing out the wrinkles in my navy polo with hands that won't stop quivering. The fabric feels foreign under my fingers, like I'm wearing someone else's uniform, someone else's life. I can't bring myself to look at Ethan or Ryan, not now, not after everything. My eyes stay glued to the floor as I fumble with my cleaning supplies, gathering up the rags and sprays with clumsy, unsteady movements. The clatter of a bottle hitting the cart feels louder than it should, like it's echoing the chaos inside me. They're still on the bed, lounging there with an ease I can't fathom. Ethan's got that sly grin on his face, the kind that knows too much, and Ryan's leaning back, arms behind his head, looking almost smug in the dim light. "Thanks for the service," Ethan drawls, his voice dripping with a double meaning that twists my stomach. Ryan lets out a low chuckle, adding, "Yeah, you've got a real talent." Their words hang in the air, heavy with implication, and I feel the heat rush to my cheeks, a mix of shame and something I can't name burning through me. I force a laugh, a brittle, hollow sound that doesn't even sound like mine, as my insides churn with a storm of regret and lingering adrenaline. I just want to get out of here, to escape the weight of their gazes and the memory of what I've done. I mumble something incoherent, a half-hearted glad to help, as I grip the handle of my cart. My knuckles are white from how hard I'm holding on, like it's the only thing keeping me grounded. As I wheel it toward the door, Ethan calls out, his tone teasing, "That was the best cleaning of our lives." Ryan's laughter follows, a soft agreement that cuts deeper than it should. I don't turn around, don't give them the satisfaction of seeing my face. I just keep moving, my steps uneven, until I reach the door. My hand shakes as I pull it open, and the click of it shutting behind me feels like a final punctuation on a chapter I wish I could erase. The hallway is empty, silent except for the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead, and I stand there for a moment, letting the cool air wash over me, trying to steady the storm inside. I roll my cart back toward the supply closet, each squeak of the wheels a reminder of how far I've strayed from who I thought I was. My mind is a tangled mess, racing with thoughts I can't outrun. Mark's face keeps pushing its way to the forefront, his trusting smile, the way his eyes crinkle at the corners when he laughs, the quiet way he waits up for me after a late shift, always with a cup of coffee ready, even if he's half asleep. I can almost hear his voice, soft and steady, asking how my day was, and the thought of facing him now makes my chest ache with a guilt so heavy it's hard to breathe. How am I supposed to look him in the eye when I get home? How do I pretend everything's fine when I feel like a stranger in my own skin? I've betrayed him in a way I never thought I could, crossed a line I can't uncross, and the weight of that truth is crushing me. The supply closet door creaks as I push it open, the familiar smell of bleach and disinfectant hitting me like a slap. I park the cart, my movements mechanical, as I unload the supplies one by one. Each item I put away feels like an attempt to put myself back together, to rebuild the walls I let crumble in that room. But it's no use. My hands are still trembling, and my reflection in the small, smudged mirror on the wall looks like someone I don't recognize. My eyes are wide, haunted, and there. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.